Welcome to We Are the Guard, the Arkansas National Guard's podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Mason, the State Public Affairs Officer. In the military, leaders ascend to leadership positions based on their potential for success with greater responsibility. And if you followed some of our social media features and certainly listened to some of our previous podcasts highlighting commanders, you've met a few of our best. We've only begun to scratch the surface and our bench is pretty deep. And today we're speaking with COL Johnathan Stubbs, commander of the 39th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, the Arkansas National Guard's largest Army unit. Colonel Stubbs, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here, Brian.
Sir, you've been in command a little over a year now, and it just so happened to be arguably one of the most difficult times throughout my career with the pandemic. Can you talk about the challenges you've faced and may still be facing with all the state active duty missions over the past year, in trying to keep the force protected from the virus and the current challenges that you're working through?
Sure. So I took command in December of 2019, and as we all well know, in March of 2020 is essentially when the pandemic took hold here in Arkansas, and we essentially had to really curtail operations, essentially shut down collective training. So that took place in March, April of that year, and we went to a virtual drill construct or modality in terms of how we delivered training and services to our soldiers. And then simultaneous to that, or near simultaneous to that, we had several state active duty taskers. In the early summer, a civil disturbance tasker for about a battalion minus, running concurrently with some COVID response requirements. Certainly a challenge for the brigade, just navigating all that, maintaining contact with our soldiers, leaders staying in touch with their soldiers at every echelon, from the fire team all the way up to the battalion commander, maintaining contact and applying leadership. As it relates to training, like I alluded to, we essentially had to stop there for a couple months, reevaluate while we went to that virtual type construct as things shut down across the state. Our XCTC rotation, the Exportable Combat Training Center rotation that was scheduled for midsummer around the July timeframe of last year, it was canceled because of COVID, and that was going to be a foundational event in terms of just preparing the brigade to go to JRTC this coming summer. So we weren't able to do that, and that was going to be focused on platoon level readiness and the like. So we had to shut that down, and we had to conduct really what amounted to a 3-week home station AT, where we would bring small elements into armories at a time, anywhere from a squad to platoon size element, and conduct training in the local area or in the armory, really focused on small unit collective tasks and individual tasks. So we really fell behind with our collective training gates, and a significant challenge for us that we had to take all of this year to overcome. So we came out of the summer last September of 2020 with about 22 days of training before we roll into JRTC this coming summer, just 22 days to train. And of that 22, only 12 really are what you could consider collective training days, where we can assemble platoons and companies and battalions together in a field environment and get after collective tactical tasks that we'll actually execute at JRTC. So anywhere from the pandemic to state active duties, civil disturbance response, COVID response and support, and then just the extreme challenges with training, and then obviously winter weather. The significant winter storm we had. We had a leader training program event, a big staff training event down at JRTC that we had to eventually go from a 7-day in-house model down there at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Because of the blizzard, we had to curtail that and just do a 2.5-day virtual model. So we've had a lot of roadblocks and challenges pop up in front of us over the last year and a half. But with that comes great opportunity to be flexible, to improvise, adapt, and overcome.
So in the big concept of training, we talk about crawl, walk, run. You want to show up to a CTC like JRTC or NTC in the run phase. Are you there?
Well, we're probably jogging. How about we'll call it jogging? So instead of crawling into JRTC, which was originally kind of our concern, especially with XCTC being canceled, and really not necessarily crawling, but limping. we have overcome a lot of those challenges, and I would say we're not a full up run, but we're certainly jogging. We've got a lot of positive momentum built up, and I think it's going to translate well to JRTC. And JRTC, they've had to adapt too. Forces Command, they've had to adapt their combat training centers, whether it be the CTC at Fort Irwin or the JRTC at Fort Polk. They've had to adapt. So they're going to meet us where we are. They're going to modify that training environment a little bit, and they understand that we've had significant challenges, and we have challenges with time. I mean, there's only so much time available for a reserve component infantry brigade to train. We just don't have access to our soldiers 24/7, and we don't have an unlimited number of training days. Like I said, 22 from last September to when we report to JRTC, with only 12 of those being, no kidding, collective training days that prepare you for large-scale combat operations in a decisive action training environment.
Sir, it seemed to me like when we were, coming out of the war in Iraq, we were very proficient at certain types of warfare, and maybe we'd lost our ability to shoot, move, and communicate on that, peer-to-peer or near-peer level fight. Are we ready for this type of engagement?
Well, if you ask me today, is the 39th Infantry Brigade ready to go conduct large-scale combat operations against a near-peer adversary? Time now. We're working towards that, and that's what JRTC is all about. So it's going to replicate that environment. It's going to replicate it with regards to the enemy threat in terms of their composition and their strengths, their capabilities. And it's going to give us an opportunity to exercise our systems within all of our warfighting functions, from fires to communications to movement and maneuver, how we sustain ourselves, and then how we conduct command and control through the principles of mission command across the formation. So, what I would tell you is that when we come out of JRTC, and we're also going to have an opportunity to conduct company-level combined arms live fire exercises, where our company commanders are going to take their infantry companies with field artillery, with mortars, with attack aviation in the form of Apaches, with mounted heavy weapons platforms such as our 50 cal Crow systems, javelins, TOW ITAS, and they're going to be able to apply live fire effects there at JRTC. So we're going to be able to culminate our exercise with that event. So we go through all that force on force in the decisive action training environment against a near-peer replicated threat. Large-scale combat operations. We culminate the exercise with company combined arms live fire exercises, a 14-day immersive training model. We come out of that, I'd say, we would probably be a lot more prepared than we are today, but we will have set the conditions for us to be a unit that is ready should the nation need us. No question.
Sir, let's do a quick career rewind. Tell us how you got started and if your family had any influence or impact on your decision to put the uniform on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the first pair of combat boots I ever put on my feet were my dad's. So my dad was an Army Guardsman. He was a chaplain in the 149th Armor Battalion in Paducah, Kentucky. So my earliest memories of a child, and I still have a picture that I carry with me on my phone just to remind me not only of my dad, but just to where I come from, is from 1977 when I was 5 years old. And it's a picture of my dad and I, my dad in his uniform, wearing the old OD greens. And I've got his protective mask around my shoulder, and I've got my arm around him, and we're fixing to send him off to annual training. So that summer, so I've got early memories of crawling around in my dad's Jeep, visiting his unit and visiting with his soldiers when I was a young child, just enamored with all things Army. And my dad really planted that seed for me in terms of service and just fascination with the military itself. So, that really So I was a senior in college, actually, when I decided to take the leap. I knew eventually I wanted to do it, but my senior year of college, I joined, and I went to basic training, one station unit training at Sand Hill, Fort Benning, Georgia, and as a private first class, and then went right into the OCS program after earning my blue cord down there. And went to the Tennessee Military Academy, Class 38 Officer Candidate School, graduated in 1995 as a second lieutenant. At that point in time, though, Tennessee was reorganizing, so the infantry battalion that I was going to was going to reflag as an artillery battalion. I knew I wanted to stay an infantry officer because that's just what I wanted to do. So I started calling around, and one of the first units I got in contact with was 2nd of the 153 Infantry, and the AO just happened to be a captain promotable Kendall Penn. So he called me in for an interview, and when I was an officer candidate, and we maintained contact, and when I graduated, I gave him a call back, and he has said they assessed me into the Arkansas Army National Guard. My wife is from Arkansas, so we just kind of made the move back home, did the interstate transfer, and officially assessed in the Arkansas Army National Guard in late 1995, and went to the basic course. And then my first AT was at JRTC in 1996. So that was 25 years ago. So it's kind of cool for me that I'm going to essentially come full circle, having started off as an infantry platoon leader in 1996 at the JRTC, and now I get to go back as a brigade commander 25 years later and do JRTC again. And in between that time, from 1996 to now, a couple deployments, company commander of Charlie Company 3, the 153, which was a combination of Alpha 2nd and Charlie 2nd, the 153 Infantry, and then that was in 04-05, and in 2008 I went back as the Brigade S3 when we did OIF 8, and then I've commanded a battalion, took a battalion to the NTC, the Gunslinger Battalion, 2nd and 153. Those are my operational assignments, and then with my full-time assignments, I just run the gamut start off as a battalion training officer, and then work my way through developmental assignments, and my 06 assignments were as a G3, a human resource officer, and chief of staff, and now I'm blessed and fortunate enough to be a full-time brigade commander in the organization of the 39th.
Sir, we've talked a little bit about how the 39th's getting ready for JRTC. Is there a personal component to that? I mean, how do your soldiers get their minds and their bodies ready for it? But what about the families and employers as well? That's quite a bit of time away from home.
It is. So, and that's been, I just reading the notes you sent me, there's a question you asked me in the notes about kind of what keeps me up at night. So I'll go ahead and answer that, and it's tied to this question here. It's managing the soldier, family, employer relationship there. Because what we're asking our soldiers to do is, it's a big ask. It's a hefty ask, right? So this AT period for the average 39th soldier is going to be a 29-day endeavor. Now, the way I tried to minimize the impact is I committed when we started the train up in last September of 2020, all the way up through about April of 2021, I committed to just mutafore Saturdays and Sundays only, nothing out of the ordinary there. So just wanted to manage the tempo, and we got after a lot of individual training doing that. There's only so much you can do in a mutafore, but we were able to still accomplish weapons qualification, our health assessments, and some crew, team, and squad level training. What I did ask them to do, understanding the environment of Fort Polk and JRTC, and then just the readiness that we needed to recover, I asked them, hey, we got to do an 8-day FTX, that super muta, the muta 16 in May. So we did muta 4 September through April. Then we did an 8-day FTX in May, and then what we are doing is we're essentially going to take a little bit of a break between the culmination of that FTX all the way to JRTC, which will start in earnest after the 4th of July weekend. So just trying to moderate the tempo a little bit. And yes, I'm asking families to sacrifice their soldiers for 29 days in terms of being away. I'm asking employers to sacrifice their employees and be without their employees. And we have a very diverse and pretty extraordinary array of civilians, citizen soldiers in our organization. I mean, teachers, law enforcement professionals, I mean, you name it, healthcare. I mean, we just run the gamut in terms of soldiers within our ranks and what they do. Small business owners, farmers, I mean, you name it, they're out there.
So sticking with the theme of investment, sir, what would you say the return on this investment is for the individual or for the employer or for the family?
Well, I can tell you for the individual soldier, it's going to be the best training, and they're going to find out a lot about themselves too. I mean, so one, they'll have access to great training. Two, they're going to be able to push themselves, find out what they can do, and come out of this, if they're resilient and they stand up to the challenge that they're going to face, because every soldier is going to have their own individual challenge that they're going to have to overcome through this thing. There's nothing about JRTC that's easy, but that's what makes it great, right? In terms of they come out of this, they'll be able to look back on the experience with pride, knowing that they made it, that they did it, and they did it as an individual, but more importantly, they were a contributing member of a team, whether that's their fire team or their squad, section, their platoon, the company, whatever the case may be. I mean, at echelon or at whatever level, from me on down or from the rifleman on up, we'll all have our individual crucibles that we'll overcome, our individual challenges. And then we'll have the pride in knowing that we overcame those challenges. We made it through the exercise. We learned a lot. We grew individually and we grew collectively, and we just got better. And then ultimately, in terms of return on investment for the taxpayer, I mean, we're going to be a more lethal, capable organization for the country.
Again, we're talking to Colonel Jon Stubbs, commander of the 39th Infantry Brigade Combat Team. Sir, your motto of fit to fight and ready to win, it really does stick. Kind of like be your best, be a soldier. What inspired those ideas?
So, I'll start with be your best, be a soldier. So I just happened to be the chief of staff when we rolled that out, and it was just an effort to rally the organization around an idea that, one, we wanted to create an organization where everybody that joined could be their best. We wanted to create an environment where every soldier that wears the uniform of a United States Army soldier, of an Arkansas Army National Guardsman, was given the opportunity to realize their full potential, to be their absolute best. Okay, so that's the individual component of it. But we all know being in the Army and being in the Arkansas Guard, it's a team sport, right? So the idea is if all of us can have that be your best type mindset, wanting to be our best every day, understanding that we're going to have days where we fall short because we're human beings, but if we all commit ourselves to that be your best mindset, you just think about the synergy and the energy and the momentum that creates collectively as an organization. If you have an organization that is all rowing with a be your best mindset, I mean, there's nothing that the organization can't do. So it's kind of a twofold thing. Individually, we create an environment for every soldier to realize their full potential. We encourage, and then we develop programs and have a spirit or a mindset about us. It's all about being the best that we can be. Similar to what we grew up with Be All You Can Be, right? The old Army commercials. And then collectively, if we're all doing that, we're just going to be that much better of an organization. So that was the Be Your Best deal. Now, the Fit to Fight, Ready to Win, I was at the pre-command course there at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and, it's all about having a vision for your command and writing out a vision statement. And, the challenge is taking all the thoughts and all the things that I wanted to accomplish in command, and you can write out a paragraph of what you wanted to do and how you wanted to do it and everything else and what you wanted your organization to be. But I wanted it to be succinct, and I had that be your best, be a soldier kind of experience, and I tried to apply it to the brigade. And I thought, hey, what do we need to be able to do as a brigade? What are we asking of, one, the individual soldier, and collectively, what's the expectation? And it just goes back to that same construct. Individually, we want every soldier to be fit to fight and ready to win. What does fit to fight mean? It's full spectrum fitness. It's not just a physical fitness. It's a mental, emotional, spiritual fitness, being technically and tactically proficient in your warrior task and drills, being proficient in your MOS. And if you can be full spectrum fit, you're going to be ready to win. And in anything I do, you got to be nested all the way to the top. And, at the top, the Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville, has said it is, winning matters. And in the end, combat's all about winning or losing. And as an American soldier and as a brigade, there is no option other than to win. We cannot lose. So it all builds upon itself. Individually, fit to fight, so we're ready to win. And then collectively, we as an organization, collectively made up of squads and platoons that are lethal, that can dominate the battlefield, company commanders and company formations that are competent and confident, and again, lethal and agile, all the way up through battalion and brigade. If we can do all that, be fit to fight, ready to win, our brigade is going to be ready to go engage in large-scale combat operations and destroy the enemies of our country. That's what it's all about.
Let's talk about the ACFT for a minute, sir.
You bet.
How are we doing? So,
one, I think the ACFT is a great thing for the Army. Change is hard. Change is difficult. With change, comes friction. With change might come some skepticism or concern. But I can tell you the feedback I'm getting from my soldiers, and I don't have anything definitive to share with you, but anecdotally and just informally, I can tell you that the test is being well received throughout the 39th Brigade. Now, I've kind of put the test on the back burner because my main focus is JRTC, right? I got to get lethal. I got to be able to maneuver collectively and do all those things that a brigade combat team has to do. I've only got 22 days, 12 days a portion of collective training. So ACFT's really full up implementation I'm going to push till after JRTC. I've got till March of 22 to do it, and we're well on glide path to do it.
You want to divulge your score? Give us something to shoot for, sir?
Yeah, sure. I mean, no, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was probably just below a 500 the first time I took it. And I'll tell you, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It was my first stab at it. My goal, I think, going forward, when I'm able to take the thing for real again, I'm shooting for about a 525. Ultimately, I'd love to land at around a 550. The things I struggle with a little bit were, let's see, what were they? It was the knee tuck. I wasn't able to max the knee tuck. I probably did about 50% of what I was supposed to do. I passed it, obviously, but not able to really get a lot of reps with a knee tuck. The sprint, drag, and carry, if you're not training and are conditioned towards that event, you wear out fast, especially in the last couple of shuttles, and your legs give out. So I was able to get that done under 2 minutes, but still not where I need to be. And then the deadlift too. That's something that I'll tell you. I did 240 pounds, did it 3 times, and I put the weight down. But I obviously 340 or so is a max, so I've got a way to go to max that event. But I'm definitely, everything I do is geared towards getting better with the ACFT ultimately. So I got some work to do, no doubt.
Sir, command presence and circulation, it's a thing, and I'm sure it's tough to see all your soldiers. It's a really big unit, and it's spread across the entire state. Your soldiers and many others across the force are listening to you now. Is there anything that you'd like to say to them directly?
Yeah, so the brigade is authorized 4,217 soldiers. We've got 5 battalions in Arkansas, so 1st and 2nd of the 153 Infantry, 206 Field Artillery, the 39th BSB, and the 239th BEB. And then, of interest, We have the 1st of 134 CAD, that's a Nebraska unit, Nebraska Army National Guard, and 1st of 138 Infantry in Missouri. So, yeah, I mean, it's a large organization, a multi-state, 3-state organization. My soldiers, it's just all about gratitude and thanking them and their families and their employers just for their dedicated service. I'm just so proud. And you go out and you watch your soldiers train, our soldiers train, and you just can't help but be moved by, their willingness to do it. Again, I mean, these are 1%ers. I mean, these are folks that had a choice, and they chose to serve. And it's really neat to see, and we saw it at the FTX, is that you pull these citizen soldiers away from their families, away from their civilian jobs, and after about 2 to 3 days of wearing the uniform, being kitted up, carrying the weapon, being camouflaged, and operating in a field tactical environment, I mean, they just embrace it. And their motivation level is through the roof. And just so very impressed with their commitment to getting the job done, to learning, to growing individually, and taking pride. I mean, I've got our soldiers taking pride in not just themselves individually, but in their small teams, and in their units, and their companies, and in their battalions. I mean, we've got a lot of pride out there too. But to our soldiers and to the families and to our employers, I can't thank them enough for what they do. Just so proud that I get to wear the same patch they do. I'm so proud that I get to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Just so proud that I get to call myself Bowie 6 and in my most humble opinion, have the best job in the Arkansas Army National Guard and the best job in the United States Army, and that's leading an Infantry Brigade Combat Team. So I'm blessed beyond measure, and I'm just very humbled that I get to be a part of the team.
That was Colonel Jon Stubbs. Sir, thanks for joining us on We Are the Guard.